Come on in. Welcome to Idled Out, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today we're talking about 5 Survivor seasons that peaked early. The merge is the point in the game where it shifts from being team-based to individual. And when most fans think of a season, they make a delineation between the seasons pre-merge and post-merge. The merge can bring with it a shift in focus or tone for a season, and is quite often when the season really kicks into high gear. Or not?
Here, let's do a dope-ass merge.
Dope.
Let's get lit. What?
Most seasons of Survivor are pretty consistent throughout, but sometimes a season completely flounders once all the players come together in the second half of the game. Whether that's because the formerly exciting strategy comes to a halt and one player or alliance steamrolls, the storylines focused on in editing just aren't interesting, or all the big personalities left early. Occasionally, a good season just completely falls off in the second half. Somebody get Cody in here to teach these seasons how to close. We'll look at the reverse next week, seasons that had a bad pre-merge and picked up in the second half. But for now, let's take a look at 5 Survivor seasons with a good pre-merge and a bad post-merge. At number 5 is Survivor Ghost Island. Ghost Island is widely regarded as a bad season, but it didn't start out that way. In fact, Ghost Island could have been a good season, except that basically all the movers and shakers of the season went out pre-merge, leaving us with a bunch of passive Navidis willing to just follow Kellen, and then later Wendell and Dom to the end, and a bunch of uninspiring Malolos who didn't have the willpower or game savvy to overthrow them. Gonzalez, Brendan, Stephanie, and James all demonstrated game savvy, or at least a willingness to play boldly, which is why most of them were voted out. And Jacob was obviously hilarious. He's like if Zayn Knight and Adam Klein had a kid. Even the 2 Navidis that go out early are frustrating losses. Morgan was a Navidi outsider in tight with Wendell and Dom when they themselves were on the outs. And Bradley, okay, he's one of the architects of Navidi strong, but at least he's funny. So far, it doesn't really sound like I'm defending the pre-merge, but it really does start off well, because there's all of the aforementioned fun and strategic characters to give screen time to. Plus, the downfall of Malolo, who all got completely swap-screwed not once but twice, is fascinatingly tragic. You keep hoping for any kind of Malolo win so much that when it actually does happen, at the Bradley boot, it's almost cathartic. Unfortunately, the season drives off a cliff after Chris goes home at the merge vote. Who knew this guy was actually our main antagonist and not just like a total joke? It's like if Dan were the final boss in Street Fighter. Chris's absence leaves the season rudderless, and each week just becomes a question of who will try to take down Dom and Wendell, and how will Laurel, Angela, or Sebastian foil it. The finale is admittedly quite good, but it's a long way from there to here. Still, seeing Wendell and Dom tie at Final Tribal and seeing Lauren get demoted to juror ends the season on a high note. Wow, she finally made a move. I mean, she moved from sitting at the Final 3 to sitting at the jury bench, but still, it was a move. At number 4 is Survivor South Pacific. I know, hear me out, okay? Maybe the word good is too strong for South Pacific's pre-merge, but it is really watchable for a variety of reasons. One, a trio of pre-merge women who I find fascinating. Semhar, a poet, Christine, one of the few on Upolu not drinking the Coach Kool-Aid, and Stacy, whose final monologue at Redemption Island is so bizarre it's been turned into a copy pasta.
They over there listen to all the Benjamins, Halloween jokes, Chucky the Cheese jokes.
2, the tribes were actually evenly matched. Here's one for the Survivor trivia buffs out there. This is the only season where immunity changed hands between 2 tribes every single round. It's actually really thrilling to watch. These have to be the most balanced tribes in Survivor history. And finally, I love Savai. This is a wildly underrated tribe on the entertainment front, and their dynamic is explosive. The completely unappealing showmance, Jim, who is ill with big movitis, Ozzy, who loses not one but two showmances to Jim's affliction, and the two tribe outsiders, the crying one and the frying one. That this group tried to pretend that they were some big happy family at the merge is objectively hilarious. Speaking of the merge, Ozzy sending himself to Redemption Island in the final round of the pre-merge to take down a woman who won 5 duels in a row, just to give his tribe the edge, is a genuinely thrilling moment, and I'm not even an Ozzy fan. I'm just giving credit where credit is due. Of course, it's completely undercut 5 minutes into the next episode by Ozzy's laughably bad lying at Redemption Island, but still. There's enough going on in South Pacific's pre-merge to make it a genuinely interesting watch. It's just that everything falls apart afterwards when Coach's cult takes over and the season loses all its momentum, which they clearly knew. They shoved the Ozzy, Jim, Dawn, and Whitney boots into 2 measly episodes just to put the gas on this boring pagonging. I've said before that this season is probably pretty good if Savai ends up in control at the merge. We undoubtedly get Jim recklessly overplaying himself out of the game. Whitney probably gets more hilarious confessionals berating Cochran for breathing oxygen and existing, and Sophie still probably squeaks out a win somehow. Instead, we got this. At number 3 is Survivor Game Changers. As a well-known Game Changers hater, you may be surprised to see me say anything nice about this season. It physically pains me, but even I can't deny that the first 5 episodes of this season are one of the most entertaining stretches of episodes in Survivor's 30s. But at what cost? Because of this season's god-awful, horrible, no-good boot order, the editors wisely milk as much out of Tony, Malcolm, JT, and Sandra as they can before they're all gone. And when you have 4 of the most naturally entertaining and charismatic players ever on a season together, doing entertaining and charismatic things, and getting lots of screen time for it, I can't complain too much. Both Tony and JT came into this season playing with house money. Tony ramped up the Tony dial to 11, running off looking for idols on minute 1, and hoping to build an underground spy bunker, the natural evolution of the spy shack. JT took massive swings, basically inventing live tribals as we know them today, and trying bold new strategies like accidentally getting your closest ally voted out and get voted out with an idol in your pocket. Sandra decided to play a completely different game this time. Instead of anybody but me, she took strategic control, and her vice grip over Mana and post-swap Nuku proved the haters wrong. And Malcolm was Malcolm. He has very few flaws in his game, so he was just the good old reliable golden boy, which would have carried him deep, except, you know, JT. There's no point in even talking about anyone else in the pre-merge, because these 4 carry it so hard, and a massive amount of screen time is rightly devoted to them, because they're all gone by episode 6. At the merge, with very few actual game changers left, the gulf between the pre-merge all-stars and the post-merge some stars has never been more apparent. Not only that, the editing gets incredibly weird, too. Because we spent so much time pre-merge with the actual game changers, the characters that matter in the endgame weren't developed properly early on, meaning some conflicts, relationships, and even entire eliminations seemingly come out of nowhere. Would I have it the other way? No, I'd rather watch Sandra cause drama over Sugar with JT, even if both of them are out in the next 2 episodes, than watch important conversations between Sierra and Brad, or watching Troyzan try to strategize. Oh, it thinks it's people. Sarah's a satisfying winner, and it's nice to see at least one of the randos evolve into an actual game changer. But the post-merge here is just too long and full of underbaked characters that I wouldn't care about anyway, even if they were fully baked. And that's me being nice to game changers. At number 2 is Survivor Australia. For a long time, this was the poster child for a season that falls apart at the merge. The pre-merge of Australia is genuinely really fun and strikes a great balance between focusing on the harsh survival elements of Australia's outback, fun strategy, and kooky characters.
We got enough rocks here too. We could build a pretty decent shelter just using rocks.
Kucha really brings the entertainment value. Whoever decided to put Alicia, Skupin, and Kimmy on a tribe together deserves an award. But Okafor somehow is the star of the show, for one reason and one reason only: Jerri. Somehow hated at the time by America, so much so that she was booed off stage at the All-Stars reunion, Jerri in Australia is one of the most entertaining characters ever on this show. We are talking top 10, if not top 5. Her insatiable thirst for Colby, petty fights with Chef Keith about cooking, and accusations against Kel that he had beef jerky made her an iconic villain almost designed in a lab to be hated by well-meaning moms across America. That Colby is such a nice boy. He deserves better. Jerri's villainy, which seems almost meek in a post-Hans world, keeps the season airy and buoyant, and you can draw a straight line through this season with her elimination. The air is completely sucked out of the season the second she is voted out at Final 8, and Survivor Australia is never entertaining again. Hard to believe America at the time preferred Nick, Amber, and Keith to Jerri. From here on out, we're left with 7 really good human beings trying to outgood each other. Someone cries like every episode. And y'all hate Survivor 43 for being too lovey-dovey? Not only that, at 15 episodes plus a reunion, this is Survivor's longest season ever. And by the end, you feel it. Outside of the episodes of Survivor where something real-life terrible happens, the finale of Australia may be my least favorite episode of Survivor ever. That extra 3 days really saps the energy out of Tina, Colby, and Keith. And we go 38 minutes of the final 3 sleepily reflecting on their journey until Keith is voted out, and then another 17 minutes of the final 2 sleepily reflecting on their journey until Final Tribal Council. It's a satisfying final 2 and winner at least, but can someone wake me up next season? At number 1 is Survivor Island of the Idols. Duh. This season is hard to revisit because the whole thing just has an unremovable Dan stank all over it, but up until the merge, this is a genuinely good season with a great cast, with very obvious exceptions. I certainly wouldn't begrudge anyone for not wanting to revisit this season, but there's a lot to like early on. In fact, almost everyone is entertaining in some way. This cast deserved so much better. A few highlights for me include Queen Karishma underdogging her way through the entire game despite everyone hating her, Kelly's hair idol, Jamal in general, Nora-ing, and Dean's abject cluelessness.
Huh?
It's a fun pre-merge. The boot order is good for the most part, and even our weekly visits to Rob and Sandra Island are so campy that I can't hate them. Of course, the season completely blows up once we reach the merge. That's not even the right word. It's nuked from orbit. It's completely glassed, nothing of value is left. The merge of Island of the Idols is probably the actual worst episode in Survivor history. Kelly asks some of the other women if they've also experienced Dan's inappropriate touching. The groundwork had been laid earlier in this season, but it comes to a head here. Come on, man, unless you're checking for idols, get out of there. Here's the deal. Dan should have been pulled much earlier in the game, or at the very least given a very strict warning after Kelly commented on his unwanted touching the first time. What actually happened was that everyone was given a vague talking to about boundaries, but no one even knew it was specifically about Dan, including Dan. So a lot of people were unclear if Kelly's accusations were even true, which makes Missy and Elizabeth's behavior unacceptable too. They gaslight Kelly into believing that they've also been harassed by Dan, even though they haven't. So they're faking inappropriate touching allegations against a man they think is innocent in a game. Janet, who is in Dan's alliance, steps outside of the game alongside Nora, Karishma, and Jamal, and votes with Kelly to do the right thing and eliminate Dan, only for everyone else to vote out Kelly instead. It's the single most frustrating moment in the history of the show, and Jamal going out in the second half of the episode without even being able to cast a vote is just salt in the wound. How and why they thought We Made It to the Merge! Was an appropriate title for this horribly dark episode is mind-boggling. The season never recovers. Dan and his alliance boringly steamroll to the end, CBS kicks him out way too late, and the one redeeming thing that could have happened, a Janet win, is foiled by f***ing Dean. Dean! Got nothing else for ya. Next week, we'll be looking at seasons that had a bad pre-merge, but a great post-merge, so don't miss that. Until next time, don't get idled out.